DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And we're back. We're back already with some more appetizers. We've been having a lot of appetizers here lately, a lot of UFC events, and it helps when your boy decides to do a fight night for the first time because the card and the build-up for it was so good. But on the surface kind of feel for this card. Like, yeah, there was a real great build up for it. It was kind of exciting and kind of enticing because it started from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. In the evening. But the card overall, and especially just the main card where you get most of the notable names, it was a little unimpressive. Left a little bit to be desired, but we'll get into those. We'll get into the main cards and some of what happened in the preliminary card because we like those heavyweight bouts. You know, there was three of them, but none of those turned out quite as well as we would have hoped. But this is so this was a UFC fight night, Adesanya versus Imavov, and this happened. This was February 1st, 2025. So last Saturday, and that was like at 8 a.m., 8 in the morning, 7 in the morning, depending on where you're from. I guess could be from 6 in the morning to 9 in the morning, anytime, depending if you're out west or not. So that was Saturday, and that was at the A&B Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. But anyways, let's get into this card because there's a lot to talk about from it, a lot to break down from it. But just the overall, just like from afar, and what I was expecting and hoping from this card. Like I said, it was left a little bit desired and maybe a little bit disappointing, especially when UFC 311 was pretty good, and then we thought that this lineup would maybe be able to outdo it. But let's get into it. Let's break down some of the heavyweight mounts on the preliminary card, and then we'll get into the main card. So, anyways, can I get a menu? And so, the first thing we're talking about these heavyweight bouts. The first fight on the card was a heavyweight bout. It was a heavyweight bout between Hamdi Abdulahab versus Jamal Pogus, and it ended up going a split decision. Kind of crazy how you see these decisions here. So one of those refs gave was 30. I guess, yeah, he gave all around. So he was 20-30, 27-30 for Jamal Pogus. And then the other two refs or judges were 29-28, 29-28 for Hamdi Abdulahab. But honestly, I think it would be, I would have probably been more leaning to what the first and only judge predicted with Jamal Pogus on him winning every round, it being 30-27 for Jamal Pogus. But apparently those judges, the judges early on, it took a minute for them to get warmed up because that was not a greatly judged bout at all. But can't say that Hamdi Abdulahab or Jamal Pogues did anything to not leave it in the hands of the judges because it was still a close fight, but definitely wouldn't have thought that Hamdi Abdulahab won that because he really just never did anything. But can't say Jamal Pogues did either. They just were both gun shy, very tentative and kind of gun shy, which was very similar to another heavyweight bout that we had on this card. And the kicker, I guess you could say even the kick in the ass. The next morning on Monday, Jamal Pogues, he's finding out that he's not removed from the UFC roster on what looked to be a badly judged bout. So. And you just got to shake your head at some of these things that happen. So yeah, got kind of screwed over in the judges' prediction of his fight, and then he gets kicked to the side of the road by UFC. So that was the first heavyweight bout, and then we had the other one, which was the co-main event of the preliminary card, which was Shamil Ghazi versus Thomas Peterson, and we got what we wanted in this fight. We got to see a head get knocked off, literally just like Shamil Ghazi was at the 3:12 mark of the first round, and uh, Thomas Peterson just pretty much just kind of leaned into just a straight right, like right down the middle, that set off a scramble and a finish for a TKO punches on him. So that was just brutal. Like I don't know how that really wasn't a one punch KO knockout, but that was brutal. We got what we wanted to see, at least one of three UFC heavyweight bouts. We got to see what we were looking for, and that was what we were wanting to see, some heads roll, and at least we got that from that bout. That was the co-main event of Shamal Ghazi versus Thomas Peterson, the TKO punches at the 3:12 mark of the first round. All right, so that's the preliminary card. Let's move on to the main card, which we had we I guess because we did the predictions and stuff, we had to pay a little bit closer attention. I had to split my days up because I watched the preliminary card early in the morning, but then I had to go do some stuff during the day, so I had to come back later around 2 or 3 o'clock and kind of no spoilers, no spoilers. Can't get on your phone or anything like that because you don't want any spoilers, which I did. I did a great job. Did a great job of not having any spoilers off the main card, so I was able to watch that as a unexpecting fan for those fights. But let's get into these fights though. So the lightweight bout, and this is where my predictions come in play. I didn't really make any predictions for the Shamal Ghazi Peterson fight or the Hamdi Abdullah Jamal Pogs. I didn't really make a prediction, but we made some predictions on this card, and maybe that could possibly be why this card maybe left a little bit too desired, because I didn't do. I mean, it's hard to really be happy or really be back in the way the card's playing out when none of what you predicted is going right. But still, it wasn't an overly exciting card, just with the methods and the outcomes of most of these fights, because four of the fights on the main card went to unanimous decision, and they weren't overly exciting like barn burners to that sense either. But let's get into the first fight on this card. It was a lightweight bout between Fares Zaim versus Mike Davis. And that ended up going unanimous decision, just a three-rounder, 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. So the judges had Fares Zim as the clear-cut winner in this fight. And I'll admit, hey, I picked Mike Davis to win this fight originally, and I thought he was going to actually win this, because even though both of these fighters are like Fares Zim is like a kickboxer and Mike Davis is predominantly like a boxer, but that's not how this fight played out at all. And that's how I was hoping and predicting this fight to go, because I thought Mike Davis would maybe be able to get Zaim in a rear naked choke, because he's been submitted like 3 or 4 times in his career, and every single time it's been by a rear naked choke. And I think his most recent loss had been by rear naked choke. So I was going with that. I was going with maybe Mike Davis maybe needs to try out his ground game a little bit. And that's kind of what happened, like right off the gate. Mike Davis actually pulled guard on Fares Zaim, and then kind of majority of the round, Fares Zaim just kind of took advantage of that position, just doing kind of some pitter patter, ground and pound, changing positions, but never was in like never really put Mike Davis like any really serious situation in the first round. But then I thought the fight was going to go exactly how I predicted it, because with about a minute left, Mike Davis was actually able to get Fares Zaim's back. He was able to get on his back, and he was trying to work the rear naked choke for like the last minute or so, but he was never really able to get close to sinking it in. So I was thinking, hey, they didn't get it in the first round, but it was kind of going the way I had predicted it, because I predicted he was going to get a rear naked choke or some type of choke on Fares Zaim. But that didn't happen. And then in the second round, Perez Zaim, he landed a good shot. Must have been like an elbow or something somewhere up on the hairline, which made Mike Davis started like bleeding like all over the cage, and that was pretty wild there for a while because I think even in the last like minute of the third round, Mike Davis landed like on the final like minute or so. He had him mounted, and he may have been on his back when he landed like an elbow from the bottom, or maybe it was on the top, and he cut him open, and he started bleeding all over the place with like 1 minute left. But besides all that, the only other thing of note is that around the middle part of the second round, Mike Davis had Perez Zaim in a back slicer for a good minute or two, and it man, if it wouldn't have been someone as flexible as Zaim and has the joint flexibility as him, that would have been a torn up knee, a torn ACL with how the torque Mike Davis was putting on his leg and his knee and his back. But besides, like just those two submission attempts, the rear naked choke attempt in the first round, and then that back slicer in kind of the middle portion of the second round, Mike Davis really didn't do a whole lot. He just kind of got ground and pounded pretty much the whole fight and was held down or took down or even pulled guard a couple times, and it didn't benefit him in doing that. But yeah, that was a good fight. But started out 0-1, and like I said, I was on the edge of my seat to start the main card because I thought I was going to get the pick right and the method right, but no, sadly, no, that did not happen. All right, so that was the first fight on the card, a good fight. Even though they go to decision, it's still a good fight. But so on the second fight on the card, we have a bantamweight bout between Vinicius Oliveira versus Saad Nurmagomedov, and I apologize. I guess I didn't. I guess I didn't make note of it or really highlight the fact that I guess Saad Nurmagomedov he hadn't fought. I didn't. I guess I didn't realize that. I didn't notice it or wasn't highlighted. But I didn't realize that he hadn't fought in like a year and a half. He hasn't fought since October 21st, 2023. So maybe you could look at this as part of the reason why he ended up losing to Vinicius Oliveira. But this fight, similar to the first fight on the card, kind of went completely opposite the way I thought it would go. And Vinicius Oliveira ended up winning this fight decision, unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. So every round, and that was just a 5 rounder. And the first round, Saad Nurmagomedov looked phenomenal. Looked like he had a lot of energy, and he was throwing all these from the hip, from the waist kicks, and like no telegraphed on them, like spinning back fists and spinning elbows and question mark kicks and stuff, and just looked great, striking actually, standing up and striking in the first round. So I'd say out of the 29, 28, 29, 28, 29, 28s from the judges, I would say all of them probably gave him Saad Nurmagomedov probably gave him the first round, and then gave Vinicius Oliveira the last 2 rounds, the second and third round, where he ended up actually pretty much dominating Saad Nurmagomedov on the ground like the entire fight. Like they kind of made it into like almost like a Muay Thai clinch fight, where it was either they were clinched up, and majority of the time Vinicius Oliveira had the better position in the Thai clinch, or he just had Saad Nurmagomedov on his back and was landing some ground and pound on him. Nothing significant, but there was definitely a good back and forth there. Just because I was a little surprised that it's kind of telling about the entire card, but just going off of some of the bonus awards, $50,000 bonus. The fight of the night was Vinicius Oliveira versus Saad Nurmagomedov. So that kind of tells you that this card wasn't that great. If that fight was what was the fight of the night was on this card. But still, an impressive performance, and definitely a display of growth in your talent and your skill by Vinicius Oliveira, because he's coming into this fight with like 16 KOs and knockouts, and is known as a great kickboxer. And heck, he goes in here and ends up dominating someone with the Nurmagomedov name on the ground. So that was an impressive, but really a really impressive performance. More impressive performance than it was a bad performance by Sad Nurmagomedov, by Vinicius Oliveira, showing his growth and his, I guess apparently he's got a pretty good ground game now. All right. So so that was a good fight. The first two fights were good fights, but a lot of people, they don't like to watch decisions, or they can't keep their focus on decisions. You want to see some crazy knockouts or some wild submissions, but didn't get that really on the first two fights of the main card. So that also makes me 0-2 on this card. I originally predicted Saad Nurmagomedov to win this, and I expected it to go to decision, but I expected him to edge it out. But I think it seemed like he used a lot of his energy with the wild strikes and kicks from the hips, that stuff that he was doing. He definitely slowed down a lot from the first round to what his output was in the second and the third round. It'd be interesting to see how quickly Saad Nurmagomedov is to try to get back in the cage after his year and a half layoff. But overall, impressive performance by Vinicius Oliveira. All right, now then, on to the heavyweight bout, our third heavyweight bout, the coveted heavyweight bouts that we were talking about on this card. And so this was Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And this went to decision as well. Another decision, three in a row. Luckily, this wasn't a card that started at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, so you didn't have to worry about every fight being a decision and the card not being over till like 1 in the morning. But yeah, so this fight went decision. I originally, so this is the first win off this card that I predicted. I predicted Sergey Pavlovich to win this, but I expected him to probably get the knockout, whether it was set off from like a one punch KO, or if it was something that was going to be more of a TKOs set off, and where he gets in a good position on Jairzinho Rozenstruik and lands some good ground and pound until it gets stopped. But that's not what happened at all in this fight. It was very similar to the Hamdi Abdulwahab, James Pogues bout, where they were just kind of both kind of gun shy and tentative, and neither one of them wanted to be the first to go, and it just a lot of just pull punches in this fight. And Sergey Pavlovich, like, that's about the only reason he won, is because he just landed a couple more shots, or had a couple, just like one or two moments where he looked a little bit more explosive, a little more just a little better in this fight. Even some of that came off of there are two different moments in the fight where it just, watching it live, it looked like Jairzinho Rozenstruik got clipped, got hit with something, got caught with something that knocked him off balance or knocked him down. But then when they did the replays, I think did the replays in the second round, and then even again in the third round, it was just their legs got tangled. And I think even the second one, the one in the third round, the second time it happened, it went down as like a trip and a takedown, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik took advantage of the position for a little while, for a bit, that ended up obviously getting them the win, but definitely not the way that we were expecting it to go down. Not for I would have never expected just one of the three heavyweight bouts to have ended by stoppage, especially the Sergey Pavlovich Jairzinho Rozenstruik bouts, because both of those guys have like an 85+% finish rate. So yeah, that was unexpected, and that was disappointing, and definitely not a very enjoyable fight to watch. Which that happens a lot. That happens a lot, not just with heavyweights, but just anytime you get two strikers in there that are known for that one punch, devastating KO power. Sometimes they're just too tentative, and don't want to commit to anything, or put your chin out there. And that's what happened in this fight. And so we mentioned Jamal Pogues, how he got kind of screwed over a little bit by some bad judging, and then ends up the Monday after, he's finding that he don't have a job anymore. Well, the same thing happened to Jarino Rosenstrike, which that's pretty wild, really, considering the only people that he ever loses to basically are heavyweight title contenders. So it's like, man, uh, like he's a top, it was like a top five heavyweight, and you lose that fight, and then you get cut, and he's like, that's all he's really known for is getting brutal KO knockouts, and the depth of the heavyweight division isn't really that deep. So I'm not as shocked about the Jamal Pogues one, just mainly just because I thought he got screwed by the reffing a little bit, but with the Jarino Rosenstrike, I mean, man. Uh, I hope you got some heavyweights or got some talent or some people on the roster that can fill a heavyweight with a resume, can fill his spot. Because I mean that's just removing a knockout highlight guy from your roster. Even though obviously we didn't get to see that, but we didn't see it from Sergey Pavlovich either. So that was what was surprising about that more than anything. All right, now then, on to the co-main event. And before we get into this, our methods, our predictions are setting at 1-2 at the moment. And I guess you could say we got a decision. We got a method kind of half right for the Vinicius Oliveira Saad Nurmagomedov about. I said that fight was going to go to the decision, and it did. So yeah, I'll take a half point anywhere I can get it. And then we got the Sergey Pavlovich one right, completely right, or not completely right. We got the prediction right, but not the method right. So that's has us sitting at 1-2 at the moment. So now then, on to the co-main event. It's a middleweight bout between Michael Page versus uh, Sahar Magmedov, and that ended up being another decision, another unanimous decision bout. And it went 30-27, 30-27, and then 29-28. And with that, the 29-28 judge, I guess he did see that Shahar Magmedov won one of those rounds, which I would say if he won one, it was probably the third round, because before that he was kind of similar to Sergey Pavlovich and Yarino Rosenstrike and Amdi Abdulahab and Jamal Pogues. He was very like tentative. Like I don't know, I don't think he hardly landed like any like significant like headshots, headshots at all on Michael Page. Like it was just like he'd get maybe a little kick here or a little jabbing like punch here at the body, but never anything significant. While Michael Venom Page, he queued up a patented vintage performance from him. The only thing we didn't get from it was the stoppage, but multiple times we had Shahar Magmedov kind of coming in, and then we had Michael Venom Page doing that explosion with just throwing like one power shot and even a couple jumping knees, landing good shots on Shahar Magmedov. But yeah, we got a patented victory from Michael Page, which that's what we had pretty much the whole first two rounds. And then Shahar Magmedov kind of started letting it loose a little bit and landed it a little bit, a couple shots and some shots at some kicks and stuff like that. But he'd already lost. Like the only way he could have won would have been able to stop Page in the third round. But yeah, so maybe Michael Page is back. Maybe he is better at middleweight, or maybe we just haven't seen the knockout capability at 170 yet, at welterweight yet. You just haven't seen it, but that's the kind of performances that you see, a patented vintage performance from Michael Venom Page. I just want to see. I want to see him knock someone out. I want to see him cave someone's skull in like he did Cyborg. Like, come on, that's what I want to see. And then on the sad note to this, like sad note, or maybe I don't know if it's sad or kind of a comical note to this, because it's hard to ever know how serious or honest some of these fighters are after they lose, especially ones that were undefeated prior or never really lost before, because like a day or two after he loses, it is released. he's releasing information or news that he was going through some nightmarish health condition coming into the fight, and that's why he didn't have a great performance. But he just didn't want to pull out. But they didn't really explain what was your nightmarish health condition, like what was it? And then you hear I've seen a little bit like yesterday and even today that I guess a doctor has kind of told him that I guess he's starting to kind of lose vision in his other eye due to like brain damage or whatever, or just damage from this eye kind of leaking over into this eye. I don't really know exactly, but just the fact that he's starting to lose some vision in his good eye, which, that kind of makes you kind of step back and think, like, man, if he just has one eye, if he loses his other eye, then he's completely blind, which that's scary, really, when you think about it. And it makes you understand why bigger, more established countries like the United States and over in like Europe and stuff won't allow him to fight. It always has to be like in the Middle East or in South America and stuff that will allow him to fight. So there's reports now after Shahar Magmadov was like the hottest thing since sliced bread coming into this fight, 15-0 with 15 stoppages, and now hell, it looks like it's a kind of an overreaction. I have to wait and see how this plays out, but there's like voices and squeaks coming out that he may retire already. Went from like one win away from being the middleweight title contender to he's gonna retire just off the first loss. That's wild. So that's a scenario to keep an eye on between them. But that's sad. My red beard brethren, only has one good eye, and now his one good eye, I guess, is starting to fail him. So yeah, that's a bit of a sad, not really sad with the outcome. I was excited to kind of see a vintage performance by Michael Page, but I don't. I guess I probably wouldn't have really wanted him to cave in my red beard brother and skull or nothing like that. But yeah, that's sad to hear about his eye. All right, so now then on to the middleweight, the main event, middleweight bout between Nasruddin Imavov uh, versus Israel Adesanya, and so leading up into this, we are 1-3 on the card, and didn't predict any of the methods right, except maybe a half of one on a fight that we didn't get right. We predicted it would go to decision, but that is about it. So coming into the main event pick, we are 1-3 on the card. We're down bad. So we were hoping that Israel Adesanya could get back fight for us to make this card and these predictions look a little bit respectable. But we didn't get that at all. So this ended up being a TKO punches wins by Nazarene Imavov, and that was at the 32nd mark of the second round. And man, this was a sad fight and a sad day just for Israel Adesanya and Israel Adesanya uh, fans, because hell, he looked good. He was moving good. He was landing some good shots in the first round. Uh, got hit maybe like once or twice, like in the first round, but then in that second round, man, he left himself out there, and man, that one shot that Nasruddin Imavov landed on him, just a hard freaking shot, like on the side of the head, like just like knocked him down, and then he came in with another one, and like pretty much the exact same shot while he was down on the ground. Like that was some brutal stuff. But man, you also got people out there also saying that maybe it was an early stoppage, but I couldn't have imagined Nasruddin Imavov landing another one of those clean shots just right to the side of the left side of Israel Adanya's head. But and Israel Adesanya did look like he came to right away, but that could be flash knockout. That doesn't mean a lot. I think the referee definitely protected him in that moment. But that was sad and unexpected. I kind of felt like maybe if Israel Adesanya loses this, that's probably how it's going to be. It's probably going to be a knockout. But I thought Israel Adesanya was going to win this by decision. I thought he was just going to be faster and more elusive and just play the point striking game and win this fight by points and just try to avoid any danger. And he just within the first 30 seconds of the second round, man, he got blown up. And that was sad. It'd be now it's real with him being 30, 35. He'll be 36 in July. It'd be interesting to see where this takes him now. But Israel Asanya, he's just never really been the same since the he since his since the loss, the first knockout that he had by Alex Pereira, and then he won the belt back by him, but he was just never really the same when the after the first knockout, like kind of put strain on his chin, and kind of turned it to glass. And that was that November 2020, yeah, November 12th, 2022. And then he won. Everyone knows that. Then he ended up winning it back April 8th, 2023 at UFC 287 with just his straight up KO, brutal knockout of Alex Pereira. Like honestly, I know it's easy to say now in hindsight, he probably should have just retired and hung him up then. But now it's just kind of gritting their teeth on wondering what he'll do now. But in my opinion, he probably should just hang it up, retire. He was he was like one win away from probably getting a rematch over Sean Strickland or Dracus Duplessis, depending on either who wins on this at UFC 312 that's coming up on Saturday. I probably would have either had the next shot at the belt, depending on who wins that title, or maybe even whoever loses, he may have a shot at them as a title bout eliminator. But really, no telling where this will put Israel Adesanya in the rankings and where his mental state is after a loss like that. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. This card, still enjoyable to watch, still fun, still a couple good knockouts here and there. There weren't any submissions on the card, but it was still fun. And hell, we're going to be right back. We're going to be right back on here with some more predictions for you coming at UFC 312. But before I just mention some of the top fights on the main card there, and then we'll get out of here. I just want to mention the rest of the fighter bonuses here. So we already mentioned Vinicius Oliveira versus Saad Nurmagomedov being the fight of the night, but we also had performances of the night, which we talked about. Naraz Imavov having that brutal and just upsetting knockout to Israel Sanye or Israel Sanye fans, but that was impressive. That's about as impressive as it can get when you're knocking people out in the top 5 or top 1 or 2 in their weight class. I would be surprised to see Israel Sanye that high ranked again, probably maybe ever. And then so that was one performance, and then we had just one more performance of the night, which was Bogan Grad, and he TKO'd, he TKO'd Lucas Alexander with elbows and punches at the 4:22 mark of the second round, which was pretty impressive. All right, so that's this card, and so we'll be right back here with some predictions for UFC 12, which it's February 8th, 2025. So Saturday coming up, and it's in Sydney, Australia, at the Kudos Bank Arena, and I think I'm not 100%. I'd have to go look, but I think that this is at the standard regular time that cards are usually are at 9. Yeah, what is it? Yeah, 10 Eastern, 9 Central time, the normal time. But yeah, this is an exciting fight, exciting card as well. I'd say it's just as good as the last two with this fight night that we just had, and then UFC 11. So it's just as good as them because everyone there's going to be so much build up and back and forth during the press conferences and the meetings between Dracus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. So that's Dracus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland 2. So we're getting the rematch there. And that's a championship bout, which we didn't have any championship bouts on the fight night. Uh, so that's kind of what held it back a little bit. But the outcomes ended up holding that card back from being all that great as well. And then we have a women's championship bout, a strawweight. Zhang Weili, the champion, versus Tatiana Saraz. And then we have a heavyweight bout. We got Jimmy Justin Tafa versus Talisan Teixeira. And I'm just going through the whole main card, but that's the top three fights. We got the heavyweight fight I'm wanting, and then we got a women's strawweight championship bout and a men's middleweight championship bout. So we're rolling. We've turned into more of a UFC podcast than we are at the Saints. The Saints season's been over for a minute, but we'll get back into it. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So can I get a check, please?